welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Quest, with me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by Spirit. I am very excited to share my gift with you and empower you to embrace your gift. So if you define yourself as a spiritual human being, then you've come to the right place. So prepare yourself now for an amazing journey where your soul will lead the way. Hi there, and welcome to a new episode of the Spiritual Quest podcast. If you listen to any of my previous episodes, then you probably know that I don't believe there's anything that can be defined as a coincidence. So when I'm introduced to a new situation or meet new people, I always listen with my soul. So when I was introduced to my next guest, I didn't know much about her and her background, and neither how she served in the world. But as soon as she shared her story, I knew why I was connecting with her. So growing up as what I would call being a sensitive child and raising a sensitive child myself, we've experienced ghosts and paranormal activities, which is not an easy topic to discuss openly without some people judging you. So when I heard my guest's story, I knew instantly that I was called to share it with you. So Laura Van Tyne started out as a mother and a school teacher until one day the paranormal descended upon their home. The veil was lifted from her then 6-year-old daughter. All of a sudden, she could see all sorts of beings and entities, and they were not all good. It all began with a ghost child named Annabelle, and Laura had to learn how to protect her daughter and save the family's soul. So Laura made it her mission to serve others who may find themselves in the deep end of the paranormal pool. She's a psychic medium, author of the book SoulTribe, and founder of the Karmic Path, where she speaks and teaches on spiritual topics, on how to connect with your higher self, living your soul's true potential, and conscious children, bringing a new perspective. I am thrilled and honored to have Laura share her story with us and to help us embrace our conscious children. Welcome to the Spiritual Quest podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I must admit, we have to start, being transparent, Laura. We just had a session, or you gifted me a session because we had some challenges coming on today. When you logged into the green room, we couldn't see you, your image, or we could see you in the green room, but we could not see you on the screen. So it was a lot of energy motion. Would you please just share with the listeners and the viewers what happened? What was that?
So I call this classic interference, and this is when the dark side gets greedy. So on my computer screen, I can see my image and what's happening very clearly on the bottom. But when I'm looking at myself on the green screen, I was completely blurred, pixelated. My voice had about a 2 to 3 second delay, a huge delay. And it was designed to get me to lose credibility, so to speak, I believe, with you. They were trying not to make this connection happen.
Okay,
And
so
so
I have to stop you, Laura. I'm sorry, because for those who listen, who are they? Please share. Who are they?
they are, so our planet, throughout the history of the planet, we have words and terms for ghosts, angels, and demons, right? They exist in every country, every culture, throughout time. 500 BC India, 1600 AD Ireland, 1962 United States. We all have these concepts, these words for ghosts, angels, and demons. So if they don't exist, how can it be so universal, right? So, and if we think about it, we didn't used to believe that viruses and bacteria were a real thing until the invention of the microscope, because we could never see them with our eyes. But once we discovered that they existed, we started washing our hands. All of a sudden, mortality rates and infections went down because that is a form of the unseen world. Now, ghost angels and demons are also part of the unseen world, or unseen for most of us. So when we think of demons, it's a human construct. These are the dark entities. They can be, and this is what I do. I've been studying this a lot. I work with this a lot. Dark entities. There's the Hat Man, the man with he wears a hat. Lower realm entities. They are these long wispy things. You see them out of the corner of your eye, and they go all the way up the scale. There's a political hierarchy in every dimension, including this lower vibrational dimension of these demons, all the way up to the reptilians and the grays. And these are what we would consider alien species, but they're very real. So we just had an experience with the reptilians.
Mm.
You could see it and I could see it, and we conferred with each other. So when I work with somebody in a session, I create a gateway so that we can tune into each other and see what's happening.
Mm.
And you could see it and I could see it, which is very validating because this is such an untangible world. We cannot see it, feel it, touch it, taste it, smell it. So, how do we get validation
Yeah.
for what we sense? And one of the biggest aspects, and this is for everybody out there, our intuition is our most profound, powerful psychic ability.
Yes.
When we can tune into our intuition, we gain wisdom. We can see and feel other dimensional activity easier and better. And we learn to trust ourselves. And we all go through those intuitive moments where we don't quite trust ourselves. My intuitive moment was like, oh, I should log in a half hour early because there's going to be interference. And I'm thinking my logical human brain is like, no, that sounds obsessive. I don't want Viveki to think that I'm kind of a nut job. Right? So I logged in about 12 minutes early or something like that. And we had some major interferences.
Oh, yes. And I
Uh,
want to share something, Laura, because when you called in, right, that I think it was about a second or two before you called, um, I got, I think I described it as daggers in my heart. I was just preparing, I was just centering myself, and out of nowhere comes this pain shooting in my heart. And then I hear you call in. And so it was like, oh, this is happening. Oh, she's calling. And I see you on the screen with all that, or you didn't show up on the screen. It was all
Blurry. Yeah.
blurry, right? And so, what do you think that was? Was that interference or trying to stop us, or what's your thought about
That
that?
was probably interference to get you to doubt me or fear me,
Mm.
right? All of
Wrong
a sudden,
person to do it too.
right,
I
before I
trust you
come on,
completely.
you feel it, right?
Yeah.
And so the dark side knows that we're about to have a really great show.
Yeah.
They don't want that. And so this is where soul sovereignty and free will, they're like an infinity loop. They're very interrelated. And so you had the free will to make wise choices. I had the same free will to make wise choices. We did not let that interfere with us. Instead, we took a moment back and I said, well, let's just clear this. And as we're clearing this, we could both see and feel this reptilian energy trying to stop this. Now, the beauty of this is now there's a large handful of reptilians that no longer have access to bother other humans,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Celebration. Yes.
So, and they mitigate our free will. We think we have free will. And how many of us have done or said something where we're like, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Because maybe there's a dark energetic force trying to perpetuate itself through us. So when we can learn how to raise our frequency, raise our vibration, it's harder for them to have access. And it took a lot of these dark entities, it took a lot of them to try to slow us down. It was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And they're basically we're trying to stop two mere mortal women.
I feel very powerful now that you put it that way.
So, and it's an experience that we both had, right?
Yes, yes,
It's an
most
experience.
definitely.
So
It was real. It was real, and I
it
could
was
feel
very
when
real.
you were clearing and doing this for me. I was very I was telling you how I was feeling in my physical body. I could where my pain suddenly shut out in my stomach or my knee, like everything was just it was so real. I mean, it really is not just like you said. How do you, it's manifesting within your physical body when you
Yes.
acknowledge it. And so at least
Yeah.
that's how. So when I acknowledged that this was going on, I could feel it. It was like I was blocked to actually feel that it wasn't me. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to find the right words. So when you cleared it, I could feel it and then understand that that pain was mine. It was created by somebody
Right.
else.
They created it to slow you down.
Mm,
They tried to put something in your throat chakra. Well, this is your voice, right?
yeah.
They tried to tether you back through your spine. So when we clean and clear, and I do a lot of this type of work. Um, when we think about all of these forces, and I really focus in on how does the unseen energetic world impact us? And it's time that we start waking up and we start looking at these programs that we've been programmed to believe. We've been programmed to believe that a ghost should rot in hell, or we've been programmed to believe that a ghost has unfinished business, so therefore they should just stay. We've been programmed to believe all of these things, but who programmed us to believe this?
Mm,
And so the question I have is if ghost energy impacts us, which we know it does. One example is if we're walking through a room and we feel a cold wave, that was probably ghost energy. So the ghost energy, we're driving down the street, we see something out of the corner of our eye, and now we're in a car accident. We can't explain that, but it's real. So if ghost energy impacts us and we're told they're supposed to stay there in this dimension that impacts us, who programmed us to believe that?
mm,
Not the light side. The 23rd Psalm in the Bible, and every religious text has it, he restoreth my soul, means something. So we don't get soul restoration in this fourth dimension, the land of ghosts. What we do get are those dark entities, the Hat Man, the reptilians, whatever they are. They have access to that ghost energy, that soul energy. And what people don't understand is that those dark beings also can reincarnate those souls back to this planet.
mm,
How is it that evil is so pervasive?
mm.
And I don't know if you've heard of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
Okay, well, why would we want Jeffrey Epstein to languish in the hells where he can build his dark spiritual team?
Mm, you're right.
Why wouldn't we want Jeffrey Epstein back in the arms of God, source creator? Let them deal with the problem, and it clears us up. It clears this planet up by removing somebody like him.
Mm.
Now,
Well,
it's not
when
my
you're speaking now, I'm thinking of so many situations and so many people as well. But do you think I trying to find the right words? Um, there's a lot of people sleepwalking, is what I'll call them, right?
Mhm.
Are these people who we seems to be sleepwalking? You could actually see them in their eyes because the soul is not,
Right.
shining brightly. Um, are these? taken by or infected by lower vibration or energies? All of them?
Yes. Yes.
So when if you
And
see somebody sleepwalking, you know they need clearing. Is that from other entities, or am I understanding you right?
yes. So we all have a spiritual team. Not all spiritual teams play for the same side. But if somebody, sleepwalking or they are disconnected from God's source, um, the dark side needs an energetic source. All right. So when the Luciferic forces fell from the light of God, they're like, oh no, we don't have energy. We need to find an energy source because they broke from that light of God. They no longer have a food supply. So they're looking at our planet and other planets. They're looking at us. We're just going to talk about our planet. They're looking at Earth saying, oh, these humans are sources of God, sources of light. What if we put a net over them so that when we live in the third dimension, right? We can see, hear, touch, smell. When we leave our physical bodies, the energy that animates the body is the soul. So we go from the third dimension. We're supposed to go from the fourth to the fourth dimension as a step up transformer so we can cross back over into home to the heavens to the higher realms. Well, along the way, the Luciferic forces basically cast a net to see what they could grab. And they got this soul energy because they still need to eat. They need a food supply. I call this soul food. So, knowledge is power. I'm not saying this to scare everybody who's listening, but knowledge is power. And this is where true soul sovereignty needs to be understood. So, the dark side can reincarnate the soul, but they have a piece of the soul in the lower astral. So, and we shamans talk about soul retrieval and things like that a
Yes.
lot, right?
Mhm.
Well, how did that soul piece get taken away? The
Mm.
traumas and dramas and the dark side, there's a lot of different ways that they can take this. So when we can remove the dark entities and elements and capture that soul piece, that soul essence that was stolen from us, we can either hand off that soul piece to the higher realms or we can put it within the soul within that body. And what that does is it strengthens us to give us our true soul sovereignty, true free will. Many times we're living with mitigated free will. We have free will, but only to a certain degree. And as a soul, what can we do to shift that? So we talk about health all the time. We talk about our physical health, our mental health, our emotional health. We even talk about our financial health, right?
Yes, we do.
What about our soul health?
Mm.
We need to start having conversations. How do I make my soul healthier? How do I make my soul stronger? How do I make my soul as resistant as possible to the dark forces? One of the ways that we can do this is through the angelic realms. The angels are sent here to assist us on our mortal journey. They cannot mitigate our free will. So they can't do anything for us unless we specifically ask for them.
Mm.
So if I want a good parking spot, I'm going to ask my angels, my team, hey guys, I need a good parking spot.
Mm.
Use them. The more you connect to your angels, the more you connect to God, the divine, to your team. We don't need a building of wood and stone to do this. We have it within ourselves.
Yes. Well said. Yes, we do. And
My
that
lecture
makes me
for
think
today.
of a story actually from my child. I call her sensitive, highly sensitive, but I guess I prefer the way you look at it, conscious children. Um, that was a new concept to me, so that's beautiful. And she had she woke up in the middle of the night a couple of years ago. She's now 15, and she was really afraid. She was frightened, and she's grown up seeing spirit and having ghosts, both good and bad, if you wish, for or different
Right.
dimensions. Um,
I'm gonna
but
interrupt you
she's
for a
also had
second.
her spirit guide. Yes.
If you're a jerk in life, you're gonna be a jerk in death.
Yeah, you're
Right?
right. You're right. So there you go. Yeah. So it was a kind of an old man that came stopped by actually, but she was there were some really dark energies that got into her space, and she's connected with her guardian angel since she was a child. She actually told me about him. Alexander is what she called him, and so we've been talking about this and how she can call on the angels. As soon as when she was a little girl, I bought her some angel cards so she could pull, and she's used those for quite a bit. And she woke up and she was so frightened, and she was so frightened that she couldn't walk. She felt like if I step on, out of bed, they're gonna take me. I mean, I'm. This is how bad it was, and she wouldn't scream because she thought if I scream, then they're going to take me. So she really was paralyzed, more or less. And she just closed her eyes and she remembered what I've said, like always call on your angels, always call on your team. And she didn't have any other opportunities to call on anything. So she said, okay, she told me, I closed my eyes and I called on the angels. And within seconds, she could feel a shift in the room. And she saw the angels. That's what she described to me. I saw a ring of angels, light protecting her, surrounding her, telling her now to move. And so she walked with these angels around her into her older sister's room where she cuddled with her and she fell asleep. And when she told me this story, I was like, wow, yeah, this is I know for a fact because I call on the angels. I've been sent to war. I know it sounds weird, but yes, when I was been
Yeah.
working on, I guess my ascension process, if you wish, and starting to use my resources, um, I've been sent into battle. And I actually woke up, or I woke up my husband because I was screaming as I was sleeping. Um, And the only thing, and I want to ask you this because the only thing that would remove that energy that was coming at me was I don't know how you say it in English, so I can't ask you that question because it's a Bible. It's like something you say. It's
Like a
oh
mantra to
yeah, it's
bring.
something from the religious from the Bible, I guess. From um, too bad I don't understand what that is. I'll have to figure that one out. But anyway, that quote or that mantra, if you wish, actually just took everything away. And I asked, why is that? And they say, because these people who's used this have done it in the purity of their hearts. So that
Yeah.
power is so, it's like the force has been built up. Like it's not only you, it's the unity of all souls that's been saying this and using that for the light, for yeah, for the highest good. That was
Well,
what.
let's talk about night terrors and sleep paralysis because
Yes.
these are very common with children. And, a lot of times pediatricians say, oh, night terrors are just a normal childhood thing. Sleep paralysis is a normal thing. No, it's not. Your child doesn't need to suffer that way. And there's a few things that we can do as parents to help that. When our child goes to sleep at night, you can bring in a choir or an entourage or a group of angels to protect them. The frequency of a green light at night, and you can get a green night light with a that frequency helps to create a barrier from these dark beings. Because remember, most children are of the light of God. So they're a tasty little meal for these dark ones, right? Especially these dark, and I don't want to scare people, but I want to be judicious in this knowledge. A lot of times, these dark beings and the light side can see potential futures. So,
Mhm.
if they can see the potential future of this child, they're going to try to torment the child to change that child's pathway,
Ooh,
change their future.
that makes
This
me
is
itch. Do you see?
this is evil,
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
So what was happening to your daughter was that same thing, and it happened to my daughter. I think even adults experience sleep paralysis. So let's take our power back. It exists. Okay, a green nightlight at night, the ability to play Mozart music on a YouTube track of 8 hours, and you can play high frequency music, and there's a lot of stuff out on the internet that says, "Oh, this is high frequency music. This is 528 hertz, whatever." How do we know for sure? We
Mhm.
don't. I could say something and claim anything. So part of it is trusting your intuition. Another part is we know that Mozart, Bach, Beethoven, those musicians are tried and true. So just find yourself a clip of like an 8-hour thing and just play it on your computer really low. You don't even have to hear it, but the frequency of that music starts to flow. The energy flows. Energy doesn't have boundaries. And
Mm,
so it starts to clean you and your home and the items in your home through a gentle vibrational frequency.
mm,
So those are a couple of things we can do um, to assist in that. The green light at night is really helpful to kids. I get a lot of positive feedback on that one. It create the green light at night, that frequency creates a barrier for these beings and it makes it harder for them to access. So those are just a few tips. um I'm going to be honest, we need to up our spiritual toolboxes.
mm,
What used to work years ago doesn't work now, because as we ascend, our spiritual toolboxes need to ascend too.
mm,
So we need to start thinking about things differently. Wafting around sage isn't going to do much. um, Burning a pure resin such as frankincense or dragon's blood resin, they come from the life blood. Resin is the lifeblood of a tree. It's the inside, right? And these are ancient high frequency trees. So if we can burn a pure resin, or if we have an essential oil from the flowers of those high frequency trees, that is a lot more powerful than some dried, crispy leaves off of a shrub.
mm. And I must say, because you told me this when we first met, and I
Mhm.
bought that essential oil, and I could actually feel the difference. So I've paid it forward. I've shared it with other people and said, try this. This will help now. Because I've noticed that I used to sage a lot.
Mhm.
And
It's not as
somehow
effective anymore.
it never really resonated with me. I usually use bells or crystal clearing spray or something herbal or whatever I felt intuitive was good for them to clean. But when I used sage, it was mainly just to, I don't know, because people do it, to be
Well,
honest.
we're programmed to believe sage will work. So
Yeah.
who gave us that belief, right?
Yeah. And so
And
but when I tried this, I could actually not only feel it, you can actually smell it, because
yeah,
you resonate with, the high, or at least I do, the high vibrational. You can, yeah. So yeah,
and
that's a good tip for anybody listening. Do that, burn it. I mean, it smells good
and with
too.
yeah, with the oil, you can mix it with a carrier oil such as even an olive oil or coconut, whatever the oil is, castor oil or whatever. So it goes farther, but you can put it on your child's feet. When we sleep at night, we tend to astral travel and we come in and out. So if we put it on the child's feet at night, on our solar plexus, which is right here, it helps to protect us on our crown chakra as well. And it doesn't take much, just like even a drop to go to all those locations with the carrier oil. It
Mm.
helps to protect us. So that's another thing that we can do at night too with our children, is to help protect them, is use that frankincense oil or dragon's blood resin or whatever that is. It's so much more powerful.
Is there any other, like, usually I say a prayer or a mantra, or I like to call it a prayer because it is a prayer, um, more or less. I've been teaching my children to actually speak to their spirit guide, to speak to the angels, and to pray to God, if you wish. And is that high frequency? Is that good for protection as well, or is that just to
No,
for
absolutely.
for the connection?
They can't they can't help us unless we ask for the help.
Yeah.
They cannot violate spiritual law. So our spiritual teams, the angelic realms, cannot violate spiritual law. They know that God gifted us with free will, so we have to ask for the help. Don't think that we have to save our asks for those emergency moments. Angels, and I'm going to use angels as the basis, but also the other spiritual higher realm team members, they also earn karma, and everything is political. Every realm has politics. An angel can't ascend in their ranks unless they can help us. They can't help us unless we ask. So don't think, and a lot of religions have programmed us to believe, like, oh, my problem's not big enough, or oh, ask, ask, ask. And my whole thing is like, what's the worst they can say? No, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Ask for the good parking spot. Ask for a good sale on blue jeans when you go to the store, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be all, high and mighty spiritual in nature, because the more you ask, the more you connect to them. And prayer is powerful, and prayer is talking to God. Prayer is talking to our teams. Prayer is talking to them. And when we meditate, we're listening to them. So those are two very powerful spiritual components. And we can just do it for maybe a minute a day. It doesn't have to be, I have to sit in the lotus position for 3 hours and do all this whatever. No,
No, I never
I'm
heard
washing
that,
dishes.
to be honest.
I'm washing dishes, and I can, pray to God. Then I can
Yeah.
washing dishes. I can talk to my spiritual team, or I can listen to them, or I'm doing yard work, or whatever it is. We have the time and the capability to do these elements whenever we see fit. So, I go kickboxing 4 to 5 days a week.
Mhm.
And while I'm kickboxing, I go through what I'm grateful for.
Oh, that's great.
I'm punching a bag, but whatever, or kicking a bag.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking about, I'm so grateful for these experiences. I'm grateful for this, or I'm troubleshooting what I need to help a client with. So use those moments. And that's, being present.
Mm. Yes, everything that you're sharing is resonating so much with me because my whole journey, like I said, I've been sensitive, I've been open, I've been trying to do, um, of course, you read about stuff because you have to find out how to protect yourself because one day or another you wake up and you go, well, I need to figure out more about what's going on. And so growing up in a family that wasn't too open, but still my mother, she was into the healing and the energy work, but I had the mediumship, the spirits, I remember my grandfather passed away and he stood in front of my bed, and I it wasn't a scary, it was just a beautiful experience, to be honest, at that moment, because I just, oh, you're okay. It was kind of that feeling. So it was kind of like a goodbye, if you wish. But then again, when we started, I'm just reflecting because I started to dabble into, what is this? Why can I see this? And we didn't have Google that time, but, there were books. I went to the library actually to find books about this. And, and there was movies about this, but there was poltergeist. It was, all those negative stuff. And I was like, what is this? And I remember just by watching it that I opened up for that energy. So I remember I saw a movie, I can't remember what it's called, but I went home and I actually found myself in that spiritual realm of that movie where I couldn't separate what was my reality, where I was, and where that movie stepped in, or that energy. And I remember I heard somebody come in and I had fallen asleep. I didn't even know I had fallen asleep. And my father was yelling, and I go, is he yelling? Where am I? And I ran out, and he was actually standing downstairs. He came late home, and he was calling my name. And he looked, what's wrong with you? Because I was all confused. I had no clue where I was. Was I in the woods, or where was I? And that really shook me. And it took a long time understanding that I had to figure out how to clear it and to close it again, because it was, I opened
Yeah.
it. I had no clue how to close it. I couldn't
Yeah.
ask anybody. There wasn't Google. I mean, YouTube
Right?
wasn't up. I was like, what do you do? So I think I've done all the mistakes in the book, if you wish, but I
You
learned
had
a lot. So
experiences,
what's your
right?
suggestion? What happened? Can you share a little bit what
Actually, yeah, so, it turns out in the movie Poltergeist, and I hadn't seen the movie Poltergeist ever, except maybe, like, 7 or 8 years ago. Somebody says, "You really have to watch this movie," and I kind of would shy away from that stuff because it's, like, my reality, my norm, and it becomes work, right?
yeah,
So I watched the movie Poltergeist. I'm watching it with a friend, and it turns out that the bones they used in that movie were actual human bones.
really?
So those souls, they got them from a mortuary in or whatever in, Los Angeles, and the cadavers,
But why
and
would they do that? I don't understand. Okay, sorry.
it probably was cheaper back then, I don't know.
Mm,
So those souls may not have crossed over, and now they're energetically attached to that movie. So when you were watching the movie, you were inundated with that soul energy, and
mm.
it's a very dark energy at that point because look at the movie, right? So when I watched the movie, it was like, "Oh god." So I go to bed later that day. I watched it like, 10 AM. When I clear myself, I go to bed that night, and my husband and I are sleeping, and all of a sudden, my computer, which is in the room next door, turns on in the middle of the night with this huge, loud, the Mac chime noise, this big loud ding, and it's like, "Whoa," and my house was full of all of these ghosts from that movie. Well, I crossed them all over, but isn't it interesting you brought up that movie out of all the movies?
Yeah, there you go. Connection again. I remember I had some girls come to me from a school that were doing Ouija boards. So let's talk about what are kids playing with and why shouldn't they play with, or should
So,
they?
Ouija boards are they open up portals. So, the concept of a Ouija board is you're asking spirit for answers or to a connection, and what happens is if you need a tool such as a Ouija board or even tarot cards, how do you know what you're connecting with is really who or what you're connecting with? How do you know you don't have a shapeshifter? And I actually have it's the story is actually in my book, SoulTribe: Navigating the Spiritual War. I had a client whose daughter, it was a mom, daughter, grandma that lived together. And the grandma died, and the granddaughter was so attached to the grandma, and the daughter and her friends created a Ouija board out of paper to summon grandma. And I had already crossed over grandma with the mom. And this person called me. She goes, "Laura, I thought you said." I'm like, "Well, yeah. So let's see what's going on." So in this case, this client actually lived pretty close to me, which is kind of cool. So I go over to the house and I asked the granddaughter to, and I created what I would call a containment field because I'm never going to litter the ether and I want to make sure everybody's safe. Spiritual safety is a big deal.
I love that
So,
you said that. I'm sorry, I just have to say that littering the ether. I love that because I'm thinking the same on Earth. You wouldn't just throw away your garbage out on the street.
oh, yeah,
Yeah. So I just
right, right.
love that synergy. All right, that's perfect.
So one way that we cannot litter the ether is ask our angelic realms to clean up our spiritual space. So the daughter is there and she's really proud. She's bringing grandma in. So I create this containment field. Grandma comes into the containment field. And I said, I want you, and they're both very psychic. I want you to visualize yourself pouring a rain of salt on grandma. Salt cleanses in all dimensions. And this is another tool you can use to help your children. You can just visualize your home, salting your child, salting it clears in every dimension. You can pour frankincense resin, visualize what that is. So I have her pour salt over grandma, and grandma shapeshifts into a reptilian.
Ooh.
So Had the mom not have been savvy enough to say, Laura, what's up with this? These reptilians would have taken up shop, taken up residency in their home. And that would not be good for anybody in that home because they start to own pieces of our soul. So when we get information like this from a Ouija board, they it gives them access to our soul energy. So this is dangerous. Violent video games are equally as dangerous, and they're online now. So violence is a low vibrational, low frequency element, period. So if your child is playing violent video games, if it's Fortnite, if it's, whatever they are nowadays, just know that your child is connecting to violence and low frequencies, which can bring in dark energies and entities.
Mm.
And video games, especially violent ones, are very, very addictive. Why are they so addictive?
Yeah, good
If
question.
it's good for you, it's not addictive, right?
Mm.
If it's good for you, you can come and go. And it's no different than a drug addiction or a substance abuse addiction of any kind. It's an addiction. So if you have a child, and generally speaking, it's boys, usually, 8 to 15 plus years old, and you take away all forms of their video games, and then they start having temper tantrums and getting really upset, the dark side has latched onto your kids.
Mm.
And I hate to say that, but it's true. And wishing and hoping is not going to change this world. Removing these dark entities, getting them to leave us alone will change the course of the planet. Recycling isn't going to change the planet, but cleaning up the dark side will, because
Mm.
they go hand in hand.
You're right. And if we clean up the darkness, I mean, souls have free will again. And then,
They do.
yeah, and then
And
it's beautiful.
there's a difference between positive and negative, light and dark, and evil.
Mm.
Evil is its own being, its own artificial intelligence, because it can morph and shapeshift and twist and turn. So we have to understand that we do need negative experiences on our soul path because we're here for soul evolution, ideally. And for example, you don't get the job you wanted and it's awful, and maybe you're not able to pay rent or whatever. But maybe your soul needed that experience so you could understand what it felt like. And later on down the road, you've got this dream job, but now you've had the experience of both. So that's not evil. That's just we're working through stuff.
Mm.
And there's a difference there. We want to remove and detach from that evil energy. And it becomes more and more pervasive, unfortunately, because we've been in a land of wafting sage and wishing and hoping, but that's not going to change things. We have to have action behind us.
Yes, action. That's so important. I mean, I hear people talk about what they want, but if they don't go out and get it, then it's not going to happen. I mean, we're here to actually do the work. And I think
Right.
that, and knowing that we have a spiritual team that is supporting us and that we can ask for guidance from. I mean, we have all we need actually to move forward. But I understand that, of course, we have to have those experiences where we have to see our own shadow side and to really see where we need to evolve and to shine
Right.
our light, right? So it's just a beautiful journey. And I think it's, as a mother of a sensitive child, seeing her finding her path or finding her way with, dealing with all the energy that is shifting. Not to mention the pandemic, she loved it. She said she would never want to go back to school. She just loved being home and doing her work. She got so much work done. It was like it was good for her, for since she's the one
And,
taking in all the energy, feeling, sensing all the time. But she actually told me this. I had a deep conversation with her the other day, and I said, so how is it going? Because she used to take in other people's emotions, and she said, no, I think I've learned that now, but now I'm more into the environment, the energy of the surrounding or the environment, if you wish. So when she comes into places where there's unbalance, she will lose her grounding. She will feel uncomfortable. She can go into spaces, she feels stuff, she hears stuff. So it's like she's kind of figured out how to deal with the human aspect of separating that's yours, this is mine. I don't have to take it in. So we've used a lot of practices and tools to get that settled and to protect. But do you have any suggestions for children who's, taking in everything that's around them? I mean, there's so much energy shifting all the time. How can we help
It's
them?
really it's difficult, and, my daughter was the same way. Um, really had to figure out what works and what doesn't work. Orange essential oil. So if your child is feeling overwhelmed, a lot of our anxieties actually aren't us, it's the energy fields around us. And we're not in resonance with that energy field. And so it's discombobulating. It gives us anxiety. And a lot, the doctors, et cetera, will just take this pill, whatever. And I'm not going to, if it's needed, it's needed. That's fine. But we can do other things too. Taking orange essential oil or any citrus oil and just putting one drop in your hands and just will shift the brain chemistry and bring you down. Just inhale it just once or twice. Um, you can wash your hands with salt scrub. Salt cleanses in all dimension. If your kid's having a bad moment, difficult time in school with the energies, because we're dealing with all sorts of energies. I remember my daughter was in 3rd grade and she came home after a horrible day. She goes, "Mom, I saw so and so's grandma and I saw this thing and this thing." And all of a sudden the walls turned into black goo and I was scared and I didn't know what to do. And this is before black goo was a, known thing. And so learning some of those strategies, putting cold water on your wrist will help break the connection also, because it's shocking and it pulls you back. Those are a couple of tools. So there's a lot of tools and strategies we can use to help our kids, but we also have to do it in a way so our kids feel normal. So in the height of what we were dealing with, and this went on in my house for 10 years. It
10
was like
years?
10
Wow.
years. We lived in what I would call a Hollywood horror movie for 10 years. We would come back from, we went to an art exhibit one night as a family of 5, and we come back and we have this big 4-foot by 5-foot painting in our living room, and it's acrylic, and we're watching the fingernail being poked out from the inside of the painting out. We had dishes flying off. We had all kinds of things happening. We had a 3-headed crocodile that roamed our house. And it would scare the animals. So I knew my daughter wasn't lying. I mean, all of us, we had a pet rabbit, uh, 2 cats and a dog, and the rabbit was house trained. But this 3-headed crocodile thing would go after the rabbit all the time, and it would be in the back corner of the house thumping its leg. And I knew that this 3-headed crocodile was around there. And my daughter would see it, she'd shut the door, but they go through doors and walls, right?
Mm.
What do you do to get rid of it? That's what I had to figure out. And karma, not wasting energy. I was a public school teacher, like you said. I taught math and I taught Spanish. And I had to stop teaching to figure out how to save my family's soul, how to protect us, because this was intense. My daughter was very sensitive. She is an amazing animal communicator. She does all these things. Yeah, all of our daughters do. But how do you protect them? So the light side, in my case, I believe, used the dark side to teach me what to do so I can come out here and share with other people on a larger platform. How do you take your soul sovereignty back? How do you get your free will back?
Mm.
As horrible as it was, I went for years thinking that 2 consecutive hours of sleep was enough, because one night my daughter and I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but my daughter's about 6 or 7, comes racing down the hall, flies into our bed, and I've got my arms around her and I can feel her little heartbeat thumping through her whole body. And she says, Mommy, the shadow men are in my bedroom and they're telling me that they're going to steal my soul so it will break you. 6 and 7-year-olds don't talk like that.
No, they don't.
After that point, that was my resolve. The dark side got greedy. I quit my job as soon as I could. Um, and I had to figure things out. And I didn't sleep because I was afraid if I slept, they would take my daughter, her soul. I was afraid, I mean, the fear was real within me. And I sought out all kinds of help. 99% of the help I sought out didn't work.
Mm.
Um, it wasn't powerful enough, whatever it was. But I do know that the dark side was trying to stop me before I got started.
Mm.
So when you and I were working a few moments ago, I asked you, do they know who I am? That yes, right? They
Yes.
know darn well who I am. And they were trying to stop this potential future. They were trying to change my timeline.
Mm.
And I'm tenacious. I'm like a bulldog with a bone sometimes. And I
That feels
wasn't going
so
to
comfortable. I'm so glad you are. I just seriously, that just brings hope. I just have to say that. Wow. Yeah.
it's, tenacity is can be a good thing, but we dealt with so much stuff. All kinds of just craziness happening in our home, all of these experiences. But as negative and dark as these experiences were, it taught me what I needed to know to move forward. And so, for anybody out there listening who's going through a really tough time, look for the silver lining of gratitude. What did I learn from this experience?
Mm.
If we look at all of this as just an experience, what did I learn from it? What can I do better moving forward? And if we can stop before we react, because these beings will want us to react, right? They'll kind of like kick us and we'll just like get angry for no reason or
Mm.
whatever it is. But if we pause, take a moment, take a deep breath, let it go, it detaches them from us. And it lets us act and react with more wisdom, more intuition, more insight.
Mm.
It's a very simple tool, but it's hard to remember in the height of the drama of life.
I have one question for you because I remember you said that you tried a lot of different things to get this sorted out, and that you found that this was more for you. It's your lesson to learn to get on this path and do this work. Um, bringing it back to what happened in the beginning of this show and me having reptilian implants, if you wish.
Mhm.
Um, I knew exactly, and I haven't thought about that moment for years, but I remember going back to that moment, um, finding out that had I listened to my intuition, I wouldn't have done it. And so, what happened in that moment? Did I do it? Just from your perspective here, did I shift my timeline by doing that? Or,
A little bit. You got overshadowed, and a lot of times people get overshadowed and you can't think clearly. How many of us are running around with what I call brain fog? We're
mm,
not thinking clearly. We have to clear that. You got overshadowed because those beings saw an opportunity to change your soul path. They didn't get very far because it didn't last long and you keep moving forward. So they're going to put a lot more energy into someone like you because they want to try to stop it, but we don't have to let it. We can just keep moving forward. We can do the best of our ability. We're going to make mistakes along the way. And guilt, blame, and shame are three emotions that we really need to hand off to our spiritual team.
yeah.
I feel guilty that I had said this. I feel, I blame this for that. I feel shameful that well, if we stop and look at it as an experience, I had this experience, so now I know.
Mm,
So, yes, it's twofold, right?
This
You
is,
got to
oh, I just want to
overshadow.
say you just confirmed that it's gone because I would have reacted that way
Okay.
when I still had just the way you said it now. I would have, why did I, the why did I? Now I feel, oh, I did it because, I had to learn this. I had to see this. I had to meet you.
Yeah, and you know what? There's no accidents.
No.
And so you learned an important lesson, those couple of years ago. And we can detach from those people experiences, etc. And it was just an experience. So because you had that experience of being overshadowed by these dark beings, you know what it looks like and feels like. As you move forward in the world, you can share that. You can keep yourself clearer because of that. And it's just an experience.
Mm. Yes, I love you. I love that you said that because I think everyone listening can get overwhelmed if they're not into this kind of work or they know anything about this. If it's first time you're listening, then I know this can be overwhelming. So, but anyway, you've given so many good tips and tools that, I recommend people listening and writing everything down just to make sure that they have it. But before we end this session today, I would you please share a little bit about your Soul Tribe book?
So my book it's on Amazon all over the world, Soul Tribe: Navigating the Spiritual War. And it's not a large book. It's meant to assist us with the tools we need to move forward on our spiritual path. How do I protect myself? How do I protect my children? What are the spiritual confines? Like, I cannot clear you without your permission. I can't walk into your home without your permission, right? It's the same concept, as above, so below. So I break it down in easy tips and tools and strategies that we can all use to improve our spiritual toolbox,
Mm,
because we need new tools. What used to work or what we thought worked doesn't really work. So we need some new tools. And I'm also always learning. I'm not going to say this is the end all. Who knows what we're going to come up with a few years from now or whatever. But these tips and tools are tried and true. And in there is a crossing over prayer, um, that you can use if you have ghosts with you. There's a dark entity removal prayer if you have dark entities. I give everybody permission to take those prayers and make photocopies of them. And
mm,
you can put them in your purse, in your car, in your child's backpack, folded up. They work automatically. And I've had testimonial all over the world about how it shifts things.
wow.
So use them. And it's full of all kinds of strategies and tips like the green night light and everything else. But it also tells us what can we do to build our spiritual team, because I want the strongest spiritual team, the best spiritual team there is to offer.
Mm.
Why wouldn't I? Right?
Yeah, right.
So, I don't want a weak team. I want something strong. I want to win.
Yes, yes.
And so it's full of those tips and strategies. It's not that large of a book because I wanted to keep it simple and not overwhelming.
Oh, I like
And what I find out is that I get feedback all over the world on this book, that I read this book and every time I learn something new, or this is a good reminder, or I didn't know this or that, but then I get the testimony that it works. So I'm very grateful that my spiritual team has imparted this knowledge so we can get it out there.
yes, most definitely. Would you share a little bit about what kind of services do you offer? I mean, there's a lot of people listening in, and I'm thinking, I'm just glad that they now know that there's people like you that can actually help and assist and support if there's
Yeah.
things are going on. I mean, it's a difficult topic, or I think so. I know it's not a difficult topic, but in my surroundings where I live, it's something that most people don't talk about. So,
5 years ago, I could not have had these conversations
mm,
because I would be labeled crazy or pessimistic or whatever. But more truths are opening up. And so there's a few services that I do offer, but um, clearing people and spaces of dark energies and entities is one of them, but also removing any implants or devices that they have put in us. And you had that experience of what that felt like.
Yes, that was no good. And
And
but the thing is, Laura, I didn't know before this happened, and you said we need to clear, and you guided me into that clearing where you asked the right questions, and I could, yes, I found it. I didn't even know how to ask those questions for myself. So I actually think you need somebody to assist you in doing that. To
we
actually,
do. And one of the things that I do differently that I really value and I'm very grateful for is that when I work with somebody, we work together as a team. Because I could tell you all kinds of things, but how would you know what's true? So there's a way that I create a word portal is not the right word, but it's kind of a right word where we create the same space so we can start seeing what's happening and going on at the same time. And I ask questions because of what I'm seeing or sensing, but I want the feedback from you to see if we're on the same page. If we're not, we're going to investigate it and get on the same page. And it really helps with a deeper clearing because also you own it. You got to participate in it. And it holds true and steady on a lot of levels when we do it that way, because there's a lot of psychics out there that say, oh, your dead grandma standing next to you and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's just enough truth, but I don't know if it's true or not, right?
yeah.
And so when we do it this way, and that's not to discount that aspect of it, but when we're dealing with other entities and dark entities, it's just really a great practice to be able to show somebody and then we remove it properly.
Mm.
If anybody out there works with a spiritual practitioner or a psychic or shaman where they bind, bury, or cast away the dead or evil and dark entities or whatever, those are the wrong answers.
Mm.
If you cast them away, then they can become your problem. If you bind them and bury them into the ground, that's not good for the earth. They can also break free eventually and they can harm us again or harm other people again. So if we hand them back off the light of God, the God source, the creator, that clears the planet.
Mm.
So ask any spiritual practitioner you consider hiring, if it's myself or Viveki or anybody else, ask them questions. Make
Yes.
sure you feel good about it. You ask, if you have a brand new child, you're going to be asking your pediatrician questions. You're going to be asking, if you need a plumber, you're going to be asking around who's the best plumber. Ask.
Mm.
And if that spiritual practitioner is offended that you're asking, that's the wrong person for you.
Yes. Wow. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank
I'm
you.
deeply, deeply grateful for you showing up and sharing this amazing and important work. And I hope that anybody listening, and if they find themselves struggling, that, make sure that you get the support you need. And I'll make sure your contact information, Laura, is in the episode description as well with the book, SoulTribe. So
Thank you.
people will find it
And
on Amazon. Yeah.
I do have a set calendar, but I do know internationally I will move my calendar around to make time so I don't talk to somebody at 2 a.m.
Oh,
their time.
good. Yeah. That's
I
kind of
will
you.
ask that. About
Yeah,
50% of my clients are international, and so I always move stuff around. So don't let that. Just know that we have to be flexible. So, but thank you for this opportunity. It's so lovely to speak with you again. So thank you.
thank you. And for you who's watching or listening, remember to sign up for the Spiritual Quest Newsflash to receive bonus materials and invitations to live events with previous guests. So make sure you'll join the conversation by visiting the Spiritual Quest podcast page. You'll also find that link in the episode description. So sending you lots of love and light from me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by spirit. Bye now.
Thank you.